branch and district secretaries meeting and officers meeting, because we have some other officers on the line. My name is Amanda Martin and I'm the president of the National Education Union. And before we start, I want to say a huge thank you for everything that you are doing in these continued unprecedented times. I know as a branch and district secretary, there is a lot coming your way right now. And it's been pretty much full on from the start of lockdown. So I want to say thank you. And to thank you for joining us for this call. The way that we're going to work today is, I'll explain in a moment, but what I want to do is just a bit of housekeeping first of all. So you'll see in the chat that was posted right at the beginning was the NEU's behaviour statement on how we want people to act during this call and during this meeting. So please familiarise yourself with that. We've also got the chat function where we absolutely want you to post things in there, maybe ask if Mary refers to a link or if I refer to something, and you can say, where is that? And our tech team can add that information in for you. If you want to ask a question, you need to go to the Q&A button and post your question on there. And to post your question, you need to put, well, it's obviously just to Mary today, unless you want to ask myself or Andrew Morris a question, because he is also on the call. But you need to post what your question is, where you're from, and your name, please, so that when we're going through the list, I can refer back to you. Because as you can imagine, with nearly 300 of you on the call, it's going to be important that we know where these questions are coming from. The call is being recorded, so if you don't want to have any questions answered or your name to appear, then please, you'll be able to catch up on this at a later time. Today's meeting has been called because obviously the nature of Sunday's announcement and the very lack of information that has come through from our government. What the aim of today's call is to give you some preparation for holding a national position with regards to where we're at for the 1st of June, based on the current situation. We hope to be able to help you to coordinate your reps as part of a national approach, and we hope to emphasise the role of bringing back the middle tier and working with the local authority. Mary has been extremely busy, and Kevin over the last few days, but absolutely have a lot of information to feed back to you on where we're at and what the NEU are doing and how you as your union can help and support, and how we can support you. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mary. Thank you. Can you unlock Mary, please, Mike?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Amanda. Thank you for that introduction. Well, it has been an extremely busy time, hasn't it? And I think that that's the way that it's going to be. There's a Chinese saying, may you live in interesting times. That's a curse, but we certainly are living in interesting times at the moment. So we know that this is a highly anxious, very worrying time for our members. Boris Johnson's announcement on Sunday was unexpected. We knew that the 1st of June was a date that was favoured by government to start to reopen schools. The indications that we'd received in a meeting on Thursday with Gavin Williamson was it was going to be, the reopening was going to be very cautious, it was going to be very staged, it was going to be very well managed, there would be schools would be given time to prepare, they could only do it when the science was right, they were going to operate on the precautionary principle. So we were expecting that there would be some announcement of some wider opening, perhaps just to year 6, perhaps vulnerable children. What was announced on Sunday was a shock to us all, particularly because the Welsh government and the Scottish government have not decided that there is a date to reopen schools, that the time is not right. So we have abandoned, and Northern Ireland has done so as well, decided it is not the time to name a date. So we have abandoned a United Kingdom approach, and that is very worrying. Boris Johnson's announcement on Sunday was intellectually incoherent. It was designed to appease the hawks and the doves in the Conservative Party. It was sent the country into chaos, really. He told us, it was pre-recorded on Thursday, actually. He told everyone that they had to go back to work the next day, and in the same speech said that 90% of public transport wouldn't be running and wouldn't be available, and told people to go back to work before there was any health and safety guidance in any of the industries that he said there should be a return. We did a survey after Boris Johnson's speech, And within 2 hours of our survey opening, we had 65,000 member responses, which is absolutely unprecedented. And I think just shows the level of concern and distress and worry that our members had as a result of his announcement. We now have over 100,000 responses to the survey, and they give a very clear message. So only 8% of our members agree with the government's plan for wider school and college opening from the 1st of June. 86% would not feel safe in sending their children back to school if there were wider school reopening. And our members agree with us that the 5 tests should be met, that the R rate should be down, that there should be alternatives to the lockdown through community testing and tracing. They agree with our 5 tests. And the first 2 tests are the preconditions which the government set itself for any unlocking of the lockdown. So they haven't even met their own conditions, never mind our tests. Now, the NEU has been highly visible during the COVID-19 crisis. Our members really support us. They think that we're acting in their best interest. We've had an exceptionally high number of new joiner members. In the last day, we've had 2,600 new members joining us, more or less evenly spread between teachers and support staff. So now, more than for a long time, members understand and non-members understand the need to act collectively. This is a crisis and they understand the need to act collectively. So where are we now and what are we going to do next? We issued an email to all members yesterday advising them not to attend meetings, not to attend planning meetings, planning on a return for the 1st of June school reopening. And we also said to our members yesterday in that email that they should not answer requests about their availability to work in schools post June the 1st. We said that no detailed planning should take place for reopening after half term. And we said this because we believe that the government has been reckless. And it was us that used that word in the first press notice after Boris Johnson's statement. And it's been used again and again. It's led on the BBC News, the ITV News. So we're sticking to that word because we absolutely believe it's true. Planning without, just a wish list of wanting to get back without thinking and reckoning about what that going back will involve. So today I want to take you further into the NEU's thinking. I want to explain our public position. I want to give you some insights into what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm going to trust you to keep what is obviously going to be confidential. Yesterday, a member tweeted out something that was said in a confidential executive meeting. I got the tweet retracted, but we do have to be careful. If we're going to tell you what's going on, then we have to trust your sense to not spill the beans when it is clearly a negotiating position. So in our public statements, I think we all need to be clear that we're not saying that schools should never reopen. We want to be clear that the NEU wants schools to reopen, and we want to move to a wider opening as soon as it is safe to do so. But it is not safe yet. The timetable is reckless. The timetable is simply not safe. It's not fair. It's not feasible. And the government is seeking to shift the responsibility for safety in schools and community health during a pandemic to school leaders and to devolve themselves of that responsibility, which should be the prime government responsibility, should be the health and safety of the public realm. And they're seeking to shift that to school leaders. They are seeking to shift a pandemic onto individual head teachers, the management of that, without a safe national framework. The DfE advice published late yesterday evening is insulting. It's patchy, it's rushed, it's woefully inadequate to support community health. The planning that school leaders are being required to do is impossible, absolutely impossible. A cursory look at the draft government plan, the toolkit for schools reopening, tells school leaders, and this is a list I just made looking at it this morning, so it tells school leaders to check the building, do a health and safety check, Make clear your expectations about school cleaning and hygiene. And there's a whole pamphlet about what the expectations should be about school cleaning and hygiene. This to include frequently touched surfaces, the need to be cleaned thoroughly every day, every surface, to ensure that sufficient hand sanitizers, hot water and soap are in every school, to ensure enough disposable tissues, ensure lidded bins in every classroom, ensure resources that are easily cleanable and wipeable are only used, to audit staff who can return, to ensure they have a trained first aider and a safeguarding officer in every school, to create temporary teaching groups, to split classes, to create teaching spaces, to source new teaching staff. And if you don't have enough teaching staff, to arrange staggered start and end times, to arrange staggered playtimes and lunch times, to consider how meals will be prepared safely, to ensure that your teaching staff and support staff don't come together in a physical way, to communicate and reassure parents, and at the end of the list, to plan teaching and learning. All of this in 3 weeks, one of which is half term. Now, staff in schools and colleges are asking for the evidence behind the decision to select some year groups. And education staff do not feel confident that the government is taking these steps with wider public health in mind. School leaders have been inundated with questions, with anxious comments, with demand for support from staff and from parents. And the government has stoked teachers and support staff anxiety and triggered real confusion, because the government announcement and the guidance from the DfE on Monday evening indicates clearly that the government is giving up on social distancing in schools, because with classes of up to 15 pupils, a maximum of 15 pupils, it is not possible with the normal class sizes of schools in England, which are amongst the smallest in the developed world. We have the smallest classrooms and the highest pupil-teacher ratio. It is not possible to socially distance with 15 pupils. So uniquely amongst workers, teachers and support staff and school leaders and adults working in school are not to be protected through social distancing. And the fact also that the government has brought back, as its first stage, reception and year 1 pupils who have no idea about social distancing, who are mucky, who spread germs, who touch everything, who cry, who wipe their snot on your trousers or on your dress. The idea that they can socially distance or keep hygienic is, the fact that they've got those first 2 year group back just shows that this is not about education. This is about getting back to school the youngest children so their parents can work from home. That is the rationale for that happening. So it's the NEU's position that national and local planning needs to be towards getting safe conditions in place that would permit a safe, wider opening. And that is not the position that the government is adopting. The government is not adopting, let's get safe conditions in place that would permit a safe, wider opening. They're going for a wider opening without the safe conditions in place. This distinction matters, and it's what other countries, including Scotland and Wales, are doing. Planning for conditions to be met, but not setting a fixed date. Now, we have written to the government 4 times asking for evidence about the rate of transmission in schools, about their modelling of any increase in transmission, and about the steps that they would be taking to ensure that the R rate in society goes down. Community testing, tracking and tracing. Asking about what is their evidence about the spread of the virus to communities? What's their evidence of the spread of the virus to staff? What's the evidence of the spread of the virus to vulnerable adults and children? We know from a study by the University of East Anglia that was produced last week using statistical modelling that school closure is the most effective way of keeping the reproduction of the virus rate, the R rate, down. So we want to know, in the absence of school closure, in wider school opening, what is the government going to do to suppress the virus? And what guarantees and assurances do our members have? The government have not answered our questions. They have not answered any of our questions in 4 letters. We believe there's still too high a rate of infection, and the contact testing and tracing, community testing and contact tracing hasn't even begun. So how that will be set up by the time there's a wider school opening, I don't think it will be. So we are going to take Boris Johnson at his word, and we're going to say this is an ambition, but what is in place is just nowhere near achieving the ambition. When he gave the speech, Boris Johnson talked about, he did a lot of modify. We're going to modify our plan. We have an ambition. Well, you can be as ambitious as you like, Boris. If you don't have the safeguards in place, it ain't going to happen. So we wrote to our leadership members on Monday, advising that we are in no position to start planning for a specific date to return to schools. And we told our NEU leaders that they should await further union advice and our commentary on DfE guidance, which we think is patchingly insulting and insufficient as it stands. Today, we've sent an email to all our reps, and we're telling our reps, in the email, I quote from it, that we should not be actively discussing plans for any wider opening of schools, nor should there be any changes to school staffing levels before the 1st of June, most especially for vulnerable staff currently working from home. As a matter of extreme urgency, we're preparing a response that will provide members and reps with clear union guidance about how and when wider opening of schools will be safe. As it stands, the government plan reveals a complete lack of understanding about school circumstances and what is possible. And government must engage seriously with education unions to agree a plan for safely reopening our schools. So currently, no vulnerable staff still currently working from home should be working on site. And we're telling the reps to delay any request to meet with your head teacher to discuss wider opening from the 1st of June until we have provided you with further union guidance. We've also got a model letter for head teachers, which we're going to be asking reps to get their members to sign. And this letter says, amongst other things, but this is the most important point in it, on the advice of our union, we are writing to let you know that we do not believe it is currently in the best interest of staff, students, or the wider community to engage in a discussion about how our school will implement the government plans for wider opening from the 1st of June. And consequently, we will not be attending meetings which are planning a 1st of June return. We've also got a similar email going out to members in schools without a rep. So the NEU position, in a nutshell, is this. Do not engage with meetings planning a 1st of June return until joint union advice is issued. Do not engage with meetings planning a June the 1st return until all education unions have a meeting with the Secretary of State. We've called for a meeting and one is being arranged. Do not have meetings until all education unions agree that it's the right time to have meetings. In this scenario, not negotiating is negotiating. You are not negotiating because you are not accepting that now is appropriate time or a safe time to be planning schools' return. There is one caveat, and that is the position we want branch officers to support reps to hold. We absolutely want that position. That is our key position. We are negotiating, not negotiate a 1st of June return. We are contesting a 1st of June return. However, if we are told that meetings will happen whether or not we attend, then we should be there. We should attend because we need to insert ourselves into those meetings, but we should do so only as a matter of last resort. So we will be attending meetings to point out and put on record the dangers and flaws in a 1st of June opening. And our commentary on the DfE advice and our own guidance will support you and reps in doing this. Our asks to you now are to organise a briefing with your reps before the end of the week so you can explain the NEU position, that no negotiation is negotiation. To organise a meeting with your reps. Make every effort to contact members in schools without a rep to support them and to find a rep. You know, we are just increasing our reps hugely in this crisis. We have 200 new reps and we're doing regional training for them today online, and the regional training is full. So it's, you know, we really are recruiting reps for this crisis, which is wonderful. We'd like you to update your rep data. And finally, we'd like you to join the reps join the reps call on Thursday so you can hear what they're saying. So I'm going to go through those asks again so you can all write them down. So organise a briefing with your reps before the end of this week so you can explain the NEU position. Make every effort to contact members in non-rep schools to support them and to find a rep. Update your rep data and join the reps call on Thursday. Now, this bit of the meeting is just for us. It's not the NEU position now, but it's looking ahead. We know this is a highly volatile situation. At the moment, we have a big over 40,000 parents signing saying, please don't make our children go back, but that may change. As a result of this widening of the lockdown, not widening of the lockdown, lowering of the lockdown, it may be that the R rate goes up and the government has to withdraw. It may be that the R rate goes down and stays down and people feel more confident about going back to work. It may be that the government can give us unimpeachable evidence that children don't transmit the virus. We don't believe they can, we haven't seen it, but we have to, assume that they've got scientific advice. We're ready to listen to it. It may be that, as people want to go back to work, public opinion changes. Lots of things may happen. It's a highly volatile situation. So we're having to insert ourselves into that situation, and we may have to change our position. We may have to modify our position. We are taking Boris Johnson seriously that this is an aspiration. It may be that we say in the future, but this is not for now, well, if you want to trial reopening of schools, we will trial that with vulnerable children going in, or we'll trial that with 1 year group going in. We will be ready to consider alternatives, but not now. Now is not the time. You didn't involve us in this announcement. It was a shock, and you are reaping the whirlwind of doing something which is reckless, and we will not support you. So it's not that we will never negotiate on school reopening. We want our 5 tests met. We want to see the science. But, and if you start teaching us seriously, we will start to negotiate. But not now. You have not treated us seriously, and we are not in the position. Our position at the moment is we are not negotiating a return on the 1st of June. The government appears to have given up on social distancing. We're not. We think the limit of 15 is far too high. So we're not going to give up on that. The TUC, just finally, Amanda, published an important statement on Friday in the name of all education unions. And there's another important statement which is going out today. I'd just like to read this because we know that unity is strength, and unity with other unions, particularly all the education unions, really has helped. The joint letter we wrote from the TUC was really important. I don't have the joint statement. I've got it on another, I thought I'd included it, but I haven't. So I will look that up, and I will say that later in this call. So that's what I want to say. And Amanda, thank you very much for giving me this time.
Thank you, Mary. Really showing the huge amount of work that we've had to be doing straight away from Sunday, added to all of the information we've already done. I just want to mention a few things. You will see some people's names up. They are the tech team. So today we have Jonah, Vin, Mike, Mark, Craig, and Henry. They are the people fielding your questions in the Q&A section. We've got quite a lot all the way through so far. You have to identify, I did write in the messaging, your real name. Some of this stuff, like Mary said, is because you are in the NEU and because you're valued officers. We don't want people outside of our union joining in this conversation, because when you're negotiating, you have to keep some of these cards close to your chest. And we have to be, we already heard from Mary an issue with Twitter yesterday, we have to be confident that we can have trust in our union so that we can share this information at the right times. That doesn't mean we're not thinking about it, that doesn't mean we're not working on it, but it does mean that we need people to be listening. So if you haven't got your name, you may well be chucked out of this meeting. I stopped one yesterday because we didn't know who had come in, just to double check. Right, I have a number of messages, but I'm going to start by saying a lot of people on the chat were commenting on our professional unity. And you've noticed today, and I'm just going to say this, that the NHT have woken up. You've noticed today that they are now in the press. And yes, we have been pushing and we have been working with them every single step of the way. And we are glad that they have come out and been on the same page as us now. It does make it much easier for us negotiating, particularly in the primary sector, when we get to that point, but negotiating our stand that Mary's just talked about, because they are saying the same things. And the TUC education unions, again, we have been leading in that and pushing that, because we know, as Mary said, unity is absolutely the strength. So I've got a number of questions and I'm just going to take them as we go through. I'll give 2 or 3 at a time, depending on the in-depthness of the question. So the first question is from Paul Busby. And members are desperate to have clear guidance from us on workload, members' own childcare, and especially for independent members fearing for their jobs. What timely support can we offer them? Before I can make a comment on that as well about that, because Boris Johnson yesterday, when a teacher asked him a question about that, said, well, I'm pretty sure if you've got childcare issues, you can go back to your employer and negotiate not having to come in. So I think we need to find that clip and play it over and over. So that's the first one. Joseph Weidenglach has, from the City of Leicester, this is a long one. Taking into account the health and safety legislation, Article 11.4 of the Framework Directive, Material Article 4, Section 44, basically protection from detriment, and 100 automatic unfair dismissals of ER personal protective equipment at work regulations, it lists all the regulations. Are we or are we not putting out the advice of individuals removing them from the workplace? And is this because of the fear of inducement and therefore linked to unofficial action? So are we looking at invoking Section 44 in the Health and Safety Act? It is a very long question and I'll get someone to post it so that you can see the actual question. And David Room, will the union back NEU head teachers who refuse to open their schools on the 1st of June due to health and safety concerns for pupils and staff? So that's David Room from Birmingham. So if I give you those 3, very much health and safety questions, those 3 all together. So thanks for team for putting those together. I've got Andrew Morris as well online, and he will be able to answer some of the questions as well as Mary. So Mary, did you want to go first?
I mean, I think we have given guidance about workload to teachers, and you know, in the end, we can give guidance, but if the workload is excessive, they have to act on that. They have to contact their rep, they have to hold a virtual meeting, and they have to say to their school leaders, this is unacceptable. We have given guidance about online learning. We've given guidance about the sorts of teaching and learning which can be done at home. So we have given guidance about that. We can't make that guidance be enforced. Members have to do some of that for themselves with your help and support as branch officers. And of course, the more schools have reps and trained reps, the more we can deal with that on a school by school basis. Some school leaders are being excellent, really, really, careful about and really clear about what can be done. Others appear to think that, acting remotely, teacher can provide an online lesson for every child for every lesson. That's just not possible. We've made those statements absolutely clear. We've given the guidance. Go on the website and see that guidance there. It's really clear. And we've got to, so members have got to follow it. The health and safety legislation, yes, we are preparing that. We're not going to do it because it would be an inducement, but we do have to be careful about that. So I'm going to bring Andrew in on that.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Somebody put a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Yeah, great. Yes, so there will be advice. I'm looking at a draft of it now. One caveat, I'm not writing the advice. It's been prepared by the union's in-house legal team, Amanda Brown and Jane Phillips principally. But it is going to be advice that's going to offer as much support and encouragement in allowing that right to be, or those rights to be exercised. Joseph mentioned that there is a tension between individual collective rights, and there have been cases where unions have been taken to court because they've encouraged members and reps to take action. But we don't think that this is a situation where that is particularly a significant risk. But equally, there are problems in organising industrial action in the formal sense. The rights in the legislation are principally rights to be protected from detriment. There are obligations on employers, and in fact, there are actually obligations on employees to tell employers if there is a situation of danger at the workplace. So there's a whole framework. What we can say, I think, in summary, is that we will tell reps that they can take steps to inform employers and inform members of shortcomings and dangers. Reps can advise members of their rights as well as drawing problems to the attention of employers. Members, we can tell, can exercise their rights, and the union can tell them that we will give them unconditional support, whether a rep or a member, if they do face any difficulty at the workplace. But in the current situation, I think we are looking at a situation where employers are going to be much less likely to try and act against employees who are exercising a reasonable doubt about the safety of the workplace.
Thank you, Andrew. And Mary,
yes, we're saying to, I mean, the list I read out about what head teachers are meant to be doing between now and the 1st of June is untenable. Now, this is a private bit of the information that I'm giving you, but we've had discussions with Paul Whiteman today, who's General Secretary of the NEHT, and he's been quite clear with us. His members are saying this is not doable. This is not doable. We know that the NEHT are putting out a survey, and so Paul Whiteman is going to go into the meeting with the Secretary of State this afternoon and say, well, you know, this isn't doable. So what do you think is doable? Because this isn't. Unfortunately, ASCL are not in the same place. They're not as impacted because secondary schools, the return isn't anything like as definite as primary. And they've been, and I'm afraid, they've been wavering about all over the place and have not helped our position. But no, of course we will support NEU heads. And interestingly, we've had 100 of the new joiners are head teachers. So, you know, I think the NEHT are going to, and again, this is a private, and this is not to be tweeted out, the NEHT are definitely under, at the beginning of this, the lockdown, Paul Whiteman and Jeff Barton unwarily answered a question from a journalist. You always have to be careful. And the headline then from a schools group report was they were lobbying for a 1st of June return. Paul Whiteman got a lot of stick for that. So we're working closely with them. And I just want to read out to you what the very short statement from the joint unions, which we managed to achieve, is. The Prime Minister's approach to reopening our schools is in danger of cutting across the guiding principle that safety and well-being of the students, parents, carers and the communities and the communities schools serve is paramount. As it currently stands, the government's plan reveals a complete lack of understanding about school circumstances and what is possible. Government must engage seriously with education unions to agree a plan for safely reopening our schools.
Thank you, Mary. And I think in answer to some of those questions, Mary mentioned in her introduction, you know, we will be looking at public health. We are asking you to hold fast, and we're holding him to those aspirations. And, you know, we think, and we are putting to the DFE, it is not achievable in the format it is. And we're willing to modify, but we need to see the science. And ASCL will not be on the TUC because they are not in the TUC, so they won't be on that. And their leader had to come out and explain why he wasn't on that letter the other day, under the cosh as well. So we are trying to work really hard with everybody else and being fair to them. Okay, I've got 3 more. Steve Scott from East Ridings of Yorkshire. Are we insisting that school meet all 5 tests before we say it is safe to members to return to work? And will the National Union be backing members? Again, it's section 44, so we've answered that question if the tests are not met. But are we hoping for all 5? I've then got Catherine Fitzgerald. And will the NEU issue clear guidance to members this evening, explaining our position? And Tony Buttifint, does the non-involvement in discussions apply to meetings with local authorities, which we have been holding on a regular basis through this crisis?
So No, definitely hold the meetings with the local authorities and explain the NEU position. If they're holding meetings and the meeting is going to be held, then you need to get to it, then you need to explain our position. Don't boycott a meeting. If it's a meeting that is going to happen because you can't stop it happening, then you need to be in it, but explaining our position. About the 5 tests, well, you know, the 5 tests have been incredibly powerful in explaining our position. We think they are reasonable tests. We think that they are tests that any competent government would want to meet. There is an argument. So Boris Johnson said, it's very interesting use of words in his speech, we have an aspiration to meet these tests, we're beginning to meet them. He didn't say that they were going to meet them. And so our tests are much lower numbers of COVID cases. Now, it's true that the COVID case numbers are going down. We still think they are unacceptably high. A national plan for social distancing, that hasn't been achieved. And what the government is saying is we won't have social distancing in schools. They haven't got a national plan. In fact, the message on social distancing is one of the most confused messages of this government. Testing. There is no national testing strategy. Well, there's an aim to get 100,000 tests, but there's no testing and contact tracing. And there's still to appoint their army of contact tracers. A whole school strategy to be put in place should the school become infected with COVID. In fact, in the DfE guidance, that is one of the strong bits of the guidance, that a school would have to close and people isolate for 2 weeks. And protection for the vulnerable, we have got somewhere on this in the DfE guidance about protection for the vulnerable. It is much stronger than it would have been if we hadn't been pressing on that. But the thing about the 5 tests is they're useful as a strategy to hold back the tide. You have to do, but there will always be differences about whether they have been met and how they have been met and to what extent. And you've got to use those 5 tests as much as you can and as powerfully as you can, as long as you can. But that won't stop us in the end having to make difficult decisions further down the line. But at the moment, the tests have not been met. But that message has almost been superseded by, this is reckless. It's more than the tests have not been met. It's just impossible to do. It is impossible to do. It's impossible to do safely. And the thing which I think is really important is about social distancing. We will not have schools as the only place where we can just give up on social distancing. Clear guidance for members. There's members. We've had clear guidance yesterday, and we've got further guidance going out today with reps emails and with letters with emails to members without a rep. And we're expecting the school reps, and we'll be talking about this with them on Thursday, the school reps to be contacting members and holding meetings about this. And I think that is the meeting, the questions.
It is, absolutely. And in adding to Mary's thing on holding meetings with the local authorities, contact those heads that are going to be in those meetings and get them saying the same message. They are just as fearful. Some may be our members, some may be NHT, and MATs and academy chains as well. Go in there and have those conversations. 3 more. John Morgan from Manchester. What advice can we give to members who would be due to return to work after maternity leave between the 1st of June and the end of September, and the end of the summer term? That's for Andrew Morris. And Marina Robb, the NASUWT are not giving their reps clear advice. I work closely with the one in my school. How can we show a united front? And then Chris Denson outlines a plan which is around do you think holding Zoom meetings to schools without a rep and leading rep activists from our district and branch will be lead meetings to recruit teams of reps is a good strategy. Everywhere we have reps, we have also asked all reps to hold a meeting. The reps letter is a great way to get all members involved. Does this sound a good strategy? I think you answered that, Mary, when you said as one of the things that we wanted to do.
I would just like to say, though, that absolutely, Chris, doing great work. One of the things we've learned through this crisis is the power of new forms of communication. So Zoom meetings with 900 reps on the line. We've had telephone town halls with 3,500 members on the line. This Zoom meeting today with over 300 branch officers on the line. As long as you have a good topic and an issue which concerns members, then they will turn up. And, you know, we have our membership is over 78% women. Many of them were young women. They're doing very, very long hours and they have caring responsibilities. It is impossible for them to get out, many of them, to evening meetings. But they can come to a Zoom call. They can be engaged with the union. They can be engaged with the issues that the union wants to engage them with. We can listen to them. So in the future, we must not forget and we must not leave behind the huge success we've had in using new forms of communication alongside face-to-face meetings and face-to-face training, not abandoning those, but alongside those to bring in more of our membership. Involvement in the union must not be a hurdle. It must not be you're not involved in the union if you don't go to this meeting and you don't go to that meeting. Involvement in the union has to be as effective and easy as possible for our members, many of whom are working 60-hour weeks. So in order to involve them, one of the reasons we are getting so many members involved is because we're saying things which are interesting to them. We're saying things that they are concerned about. The other thing we know is that, you know, the phoning round to reps, we phoned every rep. We've been able to contact over a third of them. And we now have a huge database which we're analysing about what they're concerned about. And we phone them about COVID and about how schools respond, how are responding to it. But they tell us all sorts of things. And we're analysing that. And we're finding that a lot of what we thought they were interested in, well, they're quite interested in that, but actually they're interested in something else. So I'll give you one example. At one of the last member town halls we had, a member said, I'm really worried about when schools go back. And I thought she was going to say something about health and safety. She said, well, if pupils come back in a rota, we're teaching all day and then we're doing online lessons all night. That's absolutely true. I haven't thought of that. So there's nothing beyond talking to members. So absolutely, Chris, Zoom meetings for schools without a rep. And, you know, we've had huge success by saying in those meetings with schools without a rep, well, now if you step forward to become a COVID rep, and they do, and we've had hundreds of new reps, and we'll keep them because they wanted their union in the time of crisis, and we're training them. And we've done online training today, as I said, regionally, really well taken up. With the NESUWT, we really are trying to work with them. Again, this isn't for public view, but the joint union letter, which came out from the British and Irish groups of trade unions, that became the basis for the joint union letter with Unison, the GMB, with the NESUWT, with Unite, and with the other NEHT, ourselves, and the NESUWT. And we got that through a very convoluted way because they signed up to the Big Two letter. We could base the new letter on that. So we are trying our best to work with them. They've got a new general secretary, and we're trying to work with them as well. For a united front, if there's an NESUWT rep in the school who isn't getting clear guidance, then just put them under your wing. Give them, these, in the end, these are all teachers, they're all support staff, we care about them all. Just help them along and don't show them up, try and show them away. And the question about maternity leave, that's a casework question, but I will ask Andrew if he has a view on that.
Andrew, can you unlock Andrew, please? Thank you, Mary, for those. Andrew, you're not unlocked yet. You just need to wait. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to be given permission to speak by one of the operators. Yeah, I mean, it is a sort of a casework matter, but I think it's important to be aware for all our members on maternity leave that maternity leave isn't affected by the current crisis. You start your maternity leave as normal, including if you're on furlough, and your maternity leave can come to an end and you can return to work as normal. We've even had inquiries about coming back early, believe it or not. So look at the advice on the website, it's all there.
Thank you very much. I've got 3 more questions. So Deborah Turner, Mary, can you update on joint working with Unison if this is factually accurate? So you did mention a little bit, but maybe go into a bit more detail about that. Leslie Davis, Delta Branch Secretary, our local council has said that the schools in our LA will not be opening on the June the 1st, as each LA can decide upon their own opening. As part of a large chain where all schools are not in the same LA, what do we do about organising? And Sam Udin, Lancaster and Morecambe, Sanak, Sunak has today announced extensions of current furlough scheme to the end of July and a more flexible scheme to the end of October. How are we extending our support to supply members to enable better access? And that is for Andrew Morris.
Okay, so I'll just say that we've done a huge amount of work with supply members. Andrew can talk about the furlough scheme, but what we've done also to try to lobby government to get the agencies to pay them properly under furlough. Andrew will talk about that, but he's led that work and it's been very difficult, and we don't seem to get much thanks for it, but we've been really doing it and we've led the way on that. We are working closely with Unison. Unison and the GMB and Unite signed the letter, the TUC letter, which received a huge amount of coverage over the weekend. We're continuing to work closely with them with a joint statement today. We've asked for a meeting with Gavin Williamson with all the TUC affiliated education unions, including the GMB and Unite and Unison, because at the moment they don't attend our meetings with Gavin Williamson. So we've asked for a joint meeting with them. And in fact, they came to us, the support staff unions came to us to say, can we get involved with you? The letter that they put out about COVID-19 was clearly modelled on the letter that we sent out, our first letter. And they came to us, I think, because they've seen we've made the running in this crisis, and they want to be associated with us. And we're very happy to do that because, again, we want to protect the widest number of members in school, whichever union they are in. About schools in a chain, some in one local authority opening on one day and some another, I think the key thing there is if the majority of schools are in the local authority which isn't opening, and that's a map, the negotiating position should be we can't have two opening dates for the map. And if the majority of schools are not opening on the 1st of June, and that's the NEU position, and you will get detailed help in this position, then that should be across the map. We don't think any school should be opening on the 1st of June in the current circumstances.
Thank you. Okay, so I think you've answered those questions. There is a question on, are we going to ask about health and is there a health and safety model risk assessment? And I wanted to highlight something Mary didn't mention, but the staff at the NEU worked massively hard on over this weekend, and that was putting our questions that we'd written in the letters to the government that haven't been answered into a pro forma, whereby we had the questions, and then we looked at the science that we have got from international and from here, because the government aren't asking the questions. We are not scientists. Some of us that are teachers are, but we are not scientists involved in the COVID-19 explorations. So we've put together that, but that is alongside many, many other health and safety things. So did you want to just explain what we've done with regards to health and safety? I'll start with Mary and then go to Andrew, or
So we will be producing a checklist. I will let Andrew talk about that, but we're not producing it yet because the NESUWT have produced a checklist. And if you produce a checklist, that then means you go into a meeting and you fill out your checklist. And we're saying we don't go into those meetings because the time isn't right yet. But I'd like Andrew, I think there's a maternity leave question which we didn't address last time, which he may say needs to go through advice line. But it also where we are on developing health and safety checklists. So if Andrew could be unlocked, he can do that.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I think it's fair to say that the DFE is going to put out a fair amount of advice on safety procedures, although there was very little in the advice that was published yesterday. And what we did see was really worrying because it said you don't need face masks in school, even though you need them elsewhere. You don't need social distancing in school, even though you need it elsewhere. But there will be more detailed advice published, and our advice will need to respond to that advice. We will need to have our own standards and red lines, and we will need that to be absolutely clear, and it will need to explain where our difference is different from the DFE, why it is different from the DFE, and it will be different from the DFE. So for that reason, as well as the reason Mary's outlined, it's not going to be available immediately, but it will be in time for proper discussion before any school thinks of reopening. In terms of, I think the other issue was one around supply teachers. If I can just briefly touch on that, Mary, which was, was it from Sam in Lancashire? I mean, we all accept, I think, that supply educators teachers and support staff as well have been at the sharp end in this crisis. There is pretty robust DFE and cabinet advice about continuing engagements which were ongoing or planned. The question is whether or not we can secure members' rights to carry on in those jobs if they've been pushed out of them already. How do we get them reinstated? There's also been some difficulty in getting supply agencies and umbrella companies to furlough teachers and support staff who aren't able to have any engagements because of the large-scale closing of schools. But the announcement today about the furlough scheme has suggested that employers will have to start to contribute to furlough payments. And it's at that point, I think, that we will find a very great reluctance from supply agencies and umbrella companies to continue to employ teachers and support staff who work on a casual basis. And that's going to need to be urgently raised with the DFE. And we are promised a meeting to talk about supply issues, and this will be one thing to talk about.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, I've got two more. Jean Everson, how do we proceed where we have health and safety reps? So looking at risk assessments and concentrate on those current situations only. No discussion of any future return. In this case, she's talking about the return of year 12, although that's not been put out at all. But I guess we would be using the health and safety risk assessments in the situations now. We can have those conversations without return. But if you wanted to make a further comment on that. And Dan Neal from Derbyshire, has the rep's email already gone out? As the rep said they haven't had it. You're very quick off the mark, Dan. It's going out after this call. So that's that information. I've got Ruth Quigley. Ruth Quigley from Stoke-on-Trent. What about our special schools? What health and safety tips can we give to reduce the huge amounts of anxiety going on in there?
So I looked today at the to-do list for school leaders, and the bit about health and safety for special schools was blank at the moment. This just, for me, shows the level of lack of preparedness of the government. We have issued advice to special schools. We have written to the government asking for PPE for special schools. Andrew can say more about this, but it has been an area where they have been woefully unprepared. And we have done quite a lot of casework in special schools where the management has said, everybody in, and there hasn't been appropriate. There've been children who don't understand social distancing, children who need internet care. There hasn't been PPE, and there's been too many children in school. So this is an area where we have done a lot of casework. Again, and this is difficult in special schools, but they really need a rep who's prepared with the members to actually approach the management with support of branch officers in order to say this is not safe, these conditions are not safe. The danger with special schools is there's a tendency sometimes to say the children need us, and that sort of almost absolves the management from their responsibility to make sure that it's a safe place to work. And you don't have safety balanced against we have to do the best for the children. You should have both. Of course you want to do the best for the children, but it has to be safe. So we have done quite a bit of casework already in special schools. We have got advice for special schools, and we have lobbied the government for better support for special schools, but they're still completely behind the curve on that. Absolutely.
Okay, have a question from Gerald Clark in Camden. When are you meeting with Gavin Williamson? Well, Kevin is there now. And when is the Joint Union advice likely to be available?
So we are proceeding with our own advice, and we're going to try and get Joint Union advice. We hope that we might be able to get that by the end of this week. If we can't, we will get more of our own advice out. So we won't wait on that forever, but we are trying to act in as much together as quickly as well as we can, because we think, when we at the beginning of this, when we did the joint ASCL NEHT NEU advice about how to manage schools in the current crisis, which got into the advice that staff who are vulnerable or living with vulnerable people should not be in school, got in a whole load of what we would want in terms of how teachers and support staff are treated, how schools should be organised, then the more we can do the joint guidance, the better. We are going to try and get a joint guidance with the NHT, with our school, and with all the education affiliated unions. That always takes a lot longer, and if we can't manage that, we will be issuing our own advice.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got probably the last two questions. Eleanor Davis from Lewisham, Assistant Branch Secretary. How do we stop heads from reopening schools after June the 1st, even if we have not cooperated with planning meetings? What do I do as a reception teacher on the 1st of June if I'm not cooperating, but I know my head is planning and she's already made plans? And then the other question is, many supply staff are still without income and are desperate for work. Can we issue advice to them specifically? And when will advice for leaders be updated to explain that they have responsibility to continue to pay day-to-day short-term supply staff they have hired directly, so they're treated at least as well as furloughed agency staff? And somebody just wanted a question on around colleges and the conversation around year 12s and year 10s having face-to-face meetings with teachers.
So I'll finish with colleges in year 10 and 12. That's less of a focus at the moment because that's much more before the summer. We will be providing guidance on that, but that can't be the focus at the moment, because in our headlights at the moment are primary schools, because we've got potentially a 3-week deadline for that, although we say there's no deadline. Eleanor, I can't give you individual advice about a reception teacher and your head's planning. All I can say is at the moment, we're saying schools will, at the moment, our negotiating position is 1st of June is not viable. It is not practical. It is not ethical. We won't do it. That's our negotiating position. So when your head says, are you available for work in school after the 1st of June? We've given a clear direction. Don't reply to that. Just say, I'm not willing to engage in that until my union advises me that I should. And at the moment, my union is saying that I shouldn't. How that develops, we will have to keep under review. But at the moment, we think that there is a possibility, a quite strong possibility, that we will manage to get somewhere. You know, and that on that, that's what we're staking on that. Because if we give that up now, it means what we're doing is managing a return in circumstances which we think are unsafe and untenable. So at the moment, we are sticking with no negotiation is a negotiation. And supply staff, all I can say is we have made these points repeatedly to government, but we are not in a position as a union to make it happen. You know, the situation for supply teacher and the way they're employed and the way the agencies work, and the fact that schools have just let them go, even though many of them have had regular work on a long-term basis, that is a terrible way to treat colleagues. We've done everything we can, raising the issues with government, issuing guidance, taking up the issues within schools. We've done that. Fortunately, we cannot make bad employers good employers. And the problem for supply teachers is they have limited redress at their disposal. That is an issue. And our policy is, in the end, we should be recreating supply pools, so we've got good employment. But that's not where we are in a very fragmented education system. Before we finish, Amanda, I'd just like to go back to the asks very, very quickly.
I was going to do, but I'll let you do them.
No, you do them. You do them. So thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, I want to say again a huge thank you to Mary and to Andrew and to the tech team and to all of you joining. If I miss anything, Mary, let me know. So some asks that we are asking you to do: have a meeting and brief your reps on our position, and let them know that no negotiation is our way now of negotiating. Contact places where there are no reps in schools and try and recruit one. We've got our COVID-19 reps, and give them as much as support like I know that you are doing. Update your reps data so that when we're putting out the information, it's going to them. And join our call on Thursday and listen to what the reps are saying and follow the chat that's going on there. Regards to local authority meeting, go and put our position. MAP meetings, go and put our position. And if there are meetings going on in school, go and put our position. We are not negotiating because it's non-negotiable right now and we need further advice. I think, is that everything? And yes. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you are doing. And we will hopefully see you on Friday. One other thing, on Thursday, one other thing I want to do is ask you to tweet out the information that goes out. We've done lots of media stuff today. Get it out there, tweet it out there, get members involved and get members joining. All of those new members are helping us to stand unified in this fight against COVID-19. We are putting ourselves out there, and it's absolutely the right thing to be doing to protect our members and our community. Thank you so much.